Welcome to the Unraveling the Scriptures channel. Imagine one of the most enigmatic nations in human history, filled with secrets and mysteries that challenge even the most learned scholars. Ancient Egypt, a place of grandeur and mystery, is the focus of one of the most intriguing questions. What was the true appearance of its people? The appearance of the ancient Egyptians has been a subject of debate and speculation for centuries. Who were they really? What was the color of their skin, the features of their faces, the essence of their ethnicity? Join me on this fascinating journey as we unravel the ethnic chronology of Egypt, exploring its history and the hidden secrets that shaped one of the most extraordinary civilizations on Earth. The hidden face of the Egyptians. What was their true appearance? Egypt, a nation whose ethnic origins are surrounded by controversy for many who do not delve into its history, traces back, according to the sacred scriptures, to a grandson of Noah. According to the Bible, this grandson of Noah was Mizraim, the son of Ham, one of Noah's sons. After the flood, Mizraim, along with his family, laid the foundations of what would become Egypt. Mizraim, son of Ham, also had other brothers, Cush, Put, and Canaan. Canaan, in turn, founded the land that would bear his name, giving rise to the famous Canaanites, who divided into various peoples. Mizraim, however, was the founder of ancient Egypt, one of the most powerful, fascinating, and mysterious civilizations ever to exist. Curiously, ancient Egypt was never called Egypt by the Egyptians themselves. For them, the land we know as Egypt was called Kumate or Kemet, a name that refers to the origins established by Mizraim. Mizraim, grandson of Noah and founder of this extraordinary civilization, was later venerated by his descendants as a deity. In the Egyptian pantheon, he was known as the god Mis or Mish, a primordial figure in the ancient Egyptian religion. But Mizraim not only gave rise to the land of Egypt, he was also the ancestor of other peoples and tribes in North Africa. Among them, some dark-skinned Berbers are considered direct descendants of Mizraim, carrying in their veins the legacy of one of the founders of the most enigmatic and influential civilizations in history. Ancient Egyptian sculptures and art, meticulously preserved in tombs, pyramids, and other sacred sites, accurately depict the appearance of the Egyptians from millennia ago. In these representations, dating back approximately 4,000 years, Egyptians are consistently shown with a brownish skin tone, varying from dark brown. This tone is not by chance, as it is directly linked to their ancestry. Mizraim, son of Ham, is the founder of Egypt. Ham, according to the scriptures, is the progenitor of many African peoples, which explains the skin color of the ancient Egyptians. Geographically, Egypt is located in North Africa, and its inhabitants, direct descendants of Mizraim, naturally have brownish skin, as evidenced by the artistic representations I share with you. The renowned scholar and expert on African and Semitic ethnicities, Cheikh Anta Diop, stated that the ancient Egyptians were originally people with a brown skin tone, that is, black. He emphasized that, due to Egypt's geographic location in North Africa, this characteristic is natural and evident. In his studies, Diop highlighted the clear distinction between Egyptians and European peoples, such as the Macedonians, Greeks, and Romans, as well as Semites. He stressed that Egyptians were never confused with Semites or Indo-European peoples, even after the intense intermingling that occurred throughout their history. This mixing with peoples such as Semites and Indo-Europeans, while significant, did not erase the original identity of the ancient Egyptians. Original Egyptians are often depicted with a brown skin tone in ancient artistic representations. However, some might argue, wait a minute, but various Egyptian sculptures show Egyptians with a slightly lighter skin tone than this typical color. This is true, and the reason behind these variations lies in the numerous interminglings that occurred throughout the long history of ancient Egypt. Over the centuries, Egyptians mixed with various peoples which influenced their physical characteristics as represented in art. Now, let's dive into this fascinating journey through the history of ethnic mixtures that shaped ancient Egypt, revealing the cultural and genetic influences that contributed to the rich diversity of this civilization. Let's start with the famous Hyksos, who arrived in ancient Egypt about 3,880 years ago, or approximately 1800 years before Christ. These foreign peoples of Eastern origin invaded and dominated Egypt, bringing with them a new wave of cultural and genetic influences. But who were these Semitic peoples that mingled with the ancient Egyptians over time? The group that entered Egypt at that time was known as the Hyksos, whom the Egyptians referred to as Heka Kasewet, or rulers of foreign lands. They not only marked Egyptian history with their presence, but also integrated into the local population, contributing to the ethnic diversity that characterizes ancient Egypt. The Hyksos, as mentioned earlier, were Semitic peoples from the east, with a slightly lighter skin tone than that of the native Egyptians. Their features were also distinct, such as the shape of their nose, face, eyes, and hair. Thus, around 3,800 years ago, during the period of Hyksos rule in Egypt, a significant ethnic mixing began. The native Egyptians, known as Misraimites, started to intermingle with these new Semitic inhabitants. This integration resulted in an ethnic transformation in Egypt, merging the characteristics of Semites with those of the local Egyptians. It is important to note, however, that despite this coexistence and mixing, Egyptians often had an aversion to the Hyksos, adding a layer of complexity to the relations between these peoples. The Egyptians had a deep aversion to the Hyksos, reflected in the way they referred to them. In ancient Egyptian history, the Hyksos, a Semitic group much larger than the native Egyptians, were often referred to derogatorily. The Egyptians called them desert thieves, or those who come from the desert, expressing their disdain and resentment towards these peoples. This designation not only reflected the Egyptians' hostility towards the Hyksos, but also emphasized the perception that these foreigners were intruders and threats to Egyptian stability and identity. Around 3,180 years ago, approximately 1,180 BC, the Hyksos, Semitic peoples who invaded Egypt, eventually established even a pharaonic dynasty in the country. These Hyksos pharaohs, or foreign pharaohs, marked a significant phase in Egyptian history. During the period from about 3,880 to 3,500 years ago, Egyptians, who were predominantly darker-skinned due to their Hamitic origins, began to intermingle with the Hyksos, who had a lighter skin tone and distinct physical features. This intermingling resulted in a more diverse Egyptian population. Starting from 3,800 to 3,500 years ago, a change in artistic representations of the Egyptians began to be noticed, with Egyptians being depicted with a slightly lighter skin tone compared to the Egyptians of 4,000 to 5,000 years ago. This visual change in representations reflects the ethnic mixing resulting from the presence and influence of the Hyksos in Egypt. In this context of Hyksos rule in Egypt, from approximately 1,880 BC to 1,500 BC, the figure of Joseph emerges, who became a significant ruler described as vizier or governor of Egypt. Some experts suggest that Joseph may have served as governor around 1700 BC during the Hyksos period. After the era of the Hyksos, Egypt's history continued with a series of conquests and dynastic changes. Around 700 BC, Egypt was dominated by the Babylonians, and subsequently, in 600 BC, it came under Persian control. Persian influence lasted until the period preceding the Christian era. Around 200 BC, Egypt entered the phase of the Ptolemaic pharaohs, a Greek dynasty established after the conquests of Alexander the Great. The Ptolemaic dynasty was one of the most significant and enduring dynasties to rule Egypt, succeeding the period of native Egyptian pharaohs. It was founded by Ptolemy I Sota, a Macedonian general who served Alexander the Great. After Alexander's death in 323 BC, Ptolemy I took control of Egypt, which became one of the three major kingdoms that emerged following the fragmentation of Alexander's empire. Cleopatra, the famous historical figure, was part of this dynasty, marking one of the final phases of pharaonic influence before Egypt's integration into the Roman Empire. Cleopatra, the renowned queen of Egypt, was not actually Egyptian. She was of Macedonian descent, part of the Ptolemaic dynasty. This means that Cleopatra belonged to a lineage of Greco-Macedonian pharaohs, not authentic Egyptian pharaohs. Many people are unaware of this intriguing aspect of her origin. Perhaps one day I will produce a special video exploring Cleopatra's true history, delving into the fascinating details of her heritage and influence on history. Egypt is a nation that has always been marked by significant intermingling throughout its history. Over its 3,800 years of resistance and development, the country has experienced various influences and cultural mixtures. Cleopatra, the last pharaoh of ancient Egypt, was not Egyptian by birth, but rather Macedonian, ruling and dominating ancient Egypt shortly before the advent of Christ. Over the centuries, Egypt became a truly mixed nation, with modern peoples, such as Egyptian Arabs, carrying traces of this rich historical blend. A clear evidence of this heritage is the fact that many modern Egyptians have curly hair, a trait of Hamitic origin linked to the ancient Egyptians. I hope you enjoyed exploring the true face of Egypt in this video. I will soon bring more fascinating content. Don't forget to like, comment, and share with your friends. May God be with you, and I'll see you soon.